Have you ever considered why you prefer to stay in comfortable stagnation instead of following your dreams? I'm Bryce Burrows. This is Emotional Bites. Today we're exploring emotional needs. Emotional needs are built on the tension between growth and safety that we find in Maslow's traditional hierarchy of human needs. Safety is about the need for predictability. Growth is about the need for novelty and risk. Maslow's hierarchy is thought of as a pyramid, with food, shelter, and physical safety on the bottom, then belonging, esteem, and self-actualization on the top. People constantly aim to move up the hierarchy, but in reality, they only move when it hurts. Today, this tension is explored by Sophia Rivera, Melanie Doss, and fellow emotion geek Jazz Mendola.
Thanks, Bryce. Today, we're diving deep into a paradox that creates the foundational basis for all of our emotions. Jazz, in a nutshell, what's the mechanism underpinning our emotional needs?
Hi, Sophia. Our emotions are driven by layers of thought and meaning that we create in our mind in response to what's going on in the world around us. Emotional needs operate at such deep levels that they feel immediate and automatic. This means that we don't necessarily think about them, they just seem to happen. These needs produce a sensation we feel in our bodies called valence.
Jazz, can you explain valence to our audience?
Valence is the general overall feeling in our body about whether things are good or bad, positive or negative, pleasant or unpleasant. This applies when we think about the past, the present, or the future. Valence is that quick and immediate sensation that tells us how we're feeling about what we're experiencing right now.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is that valence is the emotional charge component that we feel as the brain starts constructing our emotions.
Precisely. Threats to our well-being create negatively charged valence that form a base for emotions like anxiety, disgust, and anger. On the other hand, an emotional environment that feels safe lays a positive foundation for emotions like love, joy, and trust. Tell us, Sophia, how do we apply this? What role does valence play in understanding Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
An interesting property emerges when we overlay valence across Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Negative valence creates a pull down the hierarchy, signaling an unconscious desire for safety. Positive valence creates a pull upwards, driving us towards connection, esteem, and personal growth. These drives and desires then affect our behaviors. Is this the same way you see it, Jazz?
It is. Feelings of safety might mean we want to preserve the status quo, and feelings of threat might mean we want to protect ourselves. Feelings of stagnation might mean we want to withdraw, while feelings of growth might mean we want to join in. And it's all driven initially by valence. What do you think about this, Melanie?
I can see how valence affects us inwardly in our construction of emotion and outwardly in our expressions of behavior. But I guess to me, valence is like this quick judgment of how I feel right now versus how I'm likely to feel in 5 seconds' time. If I'm hopeful, I feel positive valence and I feel stable. If I'm full of dread, I feel negative valence and I feel unstable.
Precisely. But this is not the only judgment your mind is making when it's deciding what to do next, because your brain also needs to decide how strong that next action needs to be.
Yeah, a weak valence might create a low energy reaction, like an inkling that something is going on. But a strong valence would create a high energy reaction, like shit is about to get real, bitch.
Whoa, that's right. We have to remember that the brain's main function is as a prediction machine. And besides trying to decide what to do next, it's also trying to allocate enough energy to different parts of our body to drive those actions and behaviors.
So I think what we're saying here is that emotional needs revolve around valence, and valence is our brain's way of asking, how is this situation going to pan out? And how much energy am I going to need to get through it?
Correct. And our need to grow is driving us out of our comfort zone, while at the same time, we silently crave that we feel safe in our little bubble.
So your emotional needs are basically the negotiations between those two opposing forces of safety and growth. And valence indicates which side is winning.
Yes. But here's the thing, Jazz, and I'm bringing it back to Maslow here. Sometimes people get stuck in the safety zone, down at the lower levels of the pyramid, and even in the absence of threat. The brain releases barely any energy at all. It gets stuck in conservation mode because it doesn't get the signal that there's a viable path upwards. This is really relevant when we're talking about depression. The new thinking around this condition is that the brain is trying to conserve energy. Maybe it's doing this to use in defending against potential threats, which is why emotional safety is so important in the treatment process.
Sometimes, Sophia, people just need to get their shit together and stop being lazy.
Jazz, a lot of people suffering from depression are labeled as lazy, but if we look at things through the lens of emotional needs, the energy to get their shit together is just not available right now, and what they really need is a clear path upwards, not forwards. Remember that higher energy states come from novelty and risk as well as threat. So I usually see some pretty typical behaviors as people are trying to work their way out of this state, like buying something new or doing something crazy. You know what I mean? Haven't you seen this?
Absolutely, I have seen that. And this is why growth needs to be a guided process towards things that really matter. Things such as finding connection, building self-esteem, or being loved. The extended model of Maslow's hierarchy also includes extra things such as creativity, seeking knowledge, helping others, and appreciation of beauty. It's really useful for helping people map out where they need to go.
I think that when someone experiences depression, it's like everything in their life feels just soaked in negative valence. It's so unpleasant. In terms of Maslow's pyramid, they literally don't know which way is up. So telling someone they're lazy when they're actually depressed doesn't really help. What they really need is emotional safety plus some sort of hope that somehow they can move upward. So, Sophia, how does this actually work, psychologically speaking? What's going on under the hood when our emotional system gets caught in this tug of war?
At the most basic level, we need physical survival stuff like food and shelter, then safety and security, then love and belonging. And once we've got that, we start craving more. We want to grow, to achieve, to become our best selves. It's a natural progression. So it's a hierarchy, but not in the way Maslow originally said. It's more like an emotional matrix, I guess. It all overlaps, needs feed into each other. The brain becomes more like an emotional frog jumping across the matrix from lily pad to lily pad. And having your needs met in one area actually fuels the desire to meet them in another.
Right. But you know what? When I'm super stressed at work, I just want to survive the day, not think about how I can advance my career. It's like my emotional system gets stuck in fight or flight mode. I feel a bit wobbly, and I just want to focus on feeling balanced again rather than focus on being my best self.
This is true. Essentially, you get stuck at your level of dysfunction. It's hard to think about connection and belonging and love if you're still trying to feel stable where you are. What do you think, Jazz?
I think we've talked enough about how valence, growth, and safety form the initial foundations of our emotional state. We should move on to how emotional needs affect our relationships.
Okay, let's do that. I think that while relationships can create positive valence through opportunities to grow, especially when we meet people that are different from us, relationships can also create negative valence, especially when emotional safety is absent. People develop feelings of contempt, rejection, or potential abandonment caused by dysfunctional dynamics in the relationship itself.
And some relationships can leave people feeling stagnant because they're stifling of individuality or just plain predictable. When those negative feelings crop up over and over again, they end up with what Dr. Firestone called a fantasy bond rather than a real relationship.
The Fantasy Bond. I've read that book. It's when routine becomes a replacement for vulnerability and intimacy. Some people just want to create a repeating relational schedule where they do the same thing every day, every week, and every month. Potatoes on Tuesday, sex on Thursday, shopping on Friday. They just want to hunker down, and that's their version of being safe. But then they look at their partner and think, babe, you are so flippin' boring.
That's called projection, Melanie. It's where people are unaware of their own emotional needs, so they project their own negative feelings onto someone else. It's really hard for these people to grow. So what I do is essentially help them take their head out of their own ass.
It's like Maslow said, you can only grow as much as you're willing to let go.
Yep, you have to be willing to lose in order to gain. And I've had clients who might change directions 5 times before they find what really fits, but at least they're moving upward. And each jump, even if it's imperfect, is still progress. Doing something is better than doing nothing. Even failure has something to teach us.
I love that being good enough is a progress mindset. It's so much healthier than the all or nothing perfectionist approach because so often we end up unable to move forward because we're too focused on avoiding pain or loss.
Yeah, I've had other clients who think growth and safety are mutually exclusive opposites. Like they could either have one or the other, but not both at the same time. So what I do is help them see how these two polarities work together. Seeking safety doesn't mean you give up all growth, and seeking growth doesn't mean you give up all safety. Sometimes, if you try hard enough, you can find actions that deliver both outcomes.
Precisely. But when our emotional needs for safety and growth aren't being met, it throws everything off balance. Like Melanie mentioned before, if someone's not feeling competent at work, they'll start second guessing every decision and avoiding all risk. And that actually stifles growth. The key is to develop the inner strength to tolerate the discomfort of uncertainty. Things may fall apart, but they'll come back together again, and most of the time, it's for the better.
Right. That's called positive disintegration. I use this frame a lot. I try to help clients hold it together as things fall apart until they reach a point where they finally feel safe. Then they can actually re enter the growth cycle.
That's such an interesting perspective, Melanie. Moving down the hierarchy in order to catch the next growth wave up. I might use that on some of my future clients.
I usually try to notice when someone's existing beliefs are beginning to crack. And when those beliefs start to crumble away, that's when the progress really starts.
Is there a biological basis to this theory, Sophia?
This isn't just some woo-woo theory. Your physiological responses are tied to it. Positive cognitive appraisals around safety or stagnation both lead to parasympathetic dominance, low and slow breathing, and relaxed muscles. Positive appraisals around growth or threat both activate the sympathetic nervous system. You get a faster heart rate, dilated pupils. It's like your body is constantly oscillating between these two modes. After you feel the underlying valence your body is experiencing, it's the meaning you construct around these feelings that actually produces the emotion.
Now, Sophia, explain to me how this actually works. Like in my brain, what's the neural pathway from I feel bored to I need to go climb a mountain? Is there a specific part that gets antsy when I'm understimulated?
Well, it's complicated, but essentially the anterior cingulate cortex is monitoring for conflicts between current state and desired state. So if you're in a boring meeting and your brain is like, we should be doing something else, that's your ACC firing off signals to the prefrontal cortex, which then activates the I need novelty response. So Jazz, using you as an example, that's what triggers you to ask those questions you always do, the ones that come out of left field, where everyone is shaking their head wondering, where the hell did that come from?
Oh, really? So now I can just blame my anterior singularity cortex thingy when I start clicking my pen, driving everybody crazy, or doodling pictures of mushrooms on my notepad.
Precisely. Now, I need to tell a little story here.
No, come on, Sophia. We don't need a story. There's no need to embarrass me here.
Oh, Jazz, don't be coy. You don't get embarrassed. I know you love these stories.
Okay, go on.
I remember how crazy you used to get in those long faculty meetings at NWU. You were taking coffee breaks every 15 minutes. In the end, you'd be so strung out on caffeine, you'd start bouncing those mini donuts off the walls and back into your own mouth. One even ended up in the Dean's Earl Grey tea. Ah, those were the days.
Okay, so before we get stuck reminiscing about the good old days, I can see there's some real science behind this. But I'm also starting to think there's a nature versus nurture element. It's like you're born with this wiring, and then your personality type develops to match your environment.
Exactly. I love that. And the helpful, or should I say hopeful thing, is that this shows that your identity is not fixed, and neither are your emotional responses. They're changeable. So it means that in the end, we all have the power to shape our own experiences if we can just tune into what we really need.
This is so cool. So, by understanding this system, we can actually help people to consciously manipulate their own emotional state. Like, if they need more stability, we can create routines and rituals that give their brain the safety it craves. If I can see they're stagnant, then we can convince them to look forward to trying out something new.
Absolutely. It's like emotional engineering for dummies.
It's not about having a perfect life or completely merging with someone who we think has everything figured out. It's about being aware of where we're at and meeting needs which align with our own values and goals. And sometimes we need a little help with that.
Yes, exactly. Because without emotional granularity, someone with no awareness of their emotional or psychological needs tend to blame other people for how they feel. For example, people might be craving recognition for their hard work, but instead they just say other people are lazy. Or maybe they need connection and instead they say, you don't care about me. And that's where they often get stuck in a loop, losing their shit about the same old things time after time. They're often making all their judgments using valence without even understanding what's underneath it. All they get to work with is an internal narrative like, oh, I feel really good about this when things are going well, or shit, this is absolutely fucked when things are going wrong.
Well, Jess, some people, they go through life never needing to hold any complexity about what's going on around them. Everything is either black or white, on or off, right or wrong. And that works up to a certain point. So tell me, what does therapy look like for these people?
So, therapy is about developing the granularity they need to live with intention instead of reaction. We might look at their growth versus safety drives to find out why they're so reactive and look at Maslow's hierarchy to set some direction. I help them understand the way their emotions are constructed because once they see that, they can't unsee it. And like Melanie said before, once their existing beliefs start to crumble, we can rewrite those beliefs with ones that support their well being instead of relying on their old beliefs, which put them into distress. Once you've made that connection and you know what you're aiming for, it's quite simple, really. It just takes time and repetition.
But the important thing is we have agency and power. We're not helpless victims of our own emotional systems. I think about growth like this. Your comfort zone is like a pool. You can splash around in the shallow end all day, or you can slowly walk out deeper, feeling the fear get more intense, but knowing you can always go back to the shallow part. The goal isn't to drown, it's just to know that you can handle the deep end and, hopefully have fun doing it.
Okay, that makes much more sense. I like that idea of creating small risks while still being able to see the shore. That feels much more doable than overhauling someone's entire identity.
Perfect. And remember, the goal isn't to conquer your fears. Your brain will always have fear. The goal is to learn that you can tolerate discomfort and still be okay. It's like exposing yourself to the growth virus, slowly building up an immunity to the anxiety of new experiences. So here's what I want everyone to take away from this conversation. Your emotional needs for growth and safety are always at play, whether you're aware of them or not. It's up to you to navigate that tension consciously and make choices that align with what you really want. And if it doesn't work out, that's information you need to try a different approach.
You just hit on such a profound truth there. The same emotional system that creates your suffering can also guide you towards your highest potential.
So, should this be my new life motto? Comfort will keep you safe, but discomfort is where the true growth happens.
Oh, Melanie, I think the main thing is to stop fighting your emotional needs. If you're bored, Don't judge yourself as lazy. That negative valence is creating the tension you need to push you up Maslow's hierarchy towards personal growth. If you're anxious, don't panic that you're overreacting. Your brain is just doing its job of keeping you safe. The key is to develop the awareness to interpret what's going on underneath those feelings. But unfortunately, that's all of our time for today. It's been an interesting discussion about our emotional needs. Thanks, Jazz. Thank you, Melanie, for your time today.
Thanks, Sophia. Always a pleasure.
Peace out, guys. Time to bounce.
Thanks for joining us for the latest episode of Emotional Bites. Today, we untangled the complex web of growth, safety, and valence in the construction of emotional needs. The Emotional Bites podcast is a production of NW Studios. Be sure to tune in next time. Until then, stay curious, my friends.